From an engineer who briefly floated in the seas of the corporate world to the visionary who excelled in the startup universe, Krishna developed the art of building, experimenting, and rebuilding. This artistry helped him establish himself as the pioneer in the world of professional upskilling. Krishna is a landmine of stories, experiences, and insights. And he believes everyone has a story. On Simplilearn's very own homegrown podcast, As Simple as That, Krishna will be donning the hat of a podcaster, conversing with learners, industry leaders, business partners, and anyone who has insights to share. We are kicking off the series with Krishna sharing his own story in an engaging conversation with his longtime friend, the current Chief Product Officer of Simplilearn, and a man who has a way with words, Anand Narayanan. So, come, let's dive right in.
Hello viewers, welcome to the first episode of what we call As Simple as That. It's a series of conversations that we hope will inspire you, but more importantly, give you insights into very important and heavy topics in a very casual atmosphere. So welcome again. This idea is a concept of Krishna. So Krishna, before we get into the specific details today, and you're the first guest that's going to talk about their life today, I'm actually curious, in your own words, what is As Simple as That? Why are we here today? What do you think we're trying to do today?
So thanks, Anand. Thanks for the introduction and hello, everyone. So this idea came to me, I think, a couple of weeks back. As you know, the podcasts are getting a lot of popularity. Like people are getting a lot of viewership of, and they're hearing successful entrepreneurs, sports personalities, leaders, and so on. And in the process, they learn a lot, right? But one thing that was going on in my mind, that why are people watching the podcast of only successful people, right? Everybody is successful in their own right because everyone's circumstances is different, their challenges are different, their struggles are different. And if you look at Simplilearn as a business, what do? We help people realize their true potential through upskilling and giving them the right kind of guidance. So we thought that it might be a great idea if we can bring in some of our learners who have gone through their journey and bring that personal angle from their stories that you can relate to. And it might help you inspire, it might help you think through your own challenges in maybe in a much better way compared to how we are thinking about it today. So that's the whole idea. On this podcast, we are going to interview common people with an uncommon story. People who have done remarkably well in their lives for various reasons, and they might not be as successful as some of these who's and who of the world that you hear about, but you might find their story interesting. So that's the whole concept.
What a wonderful idea. By the way, speaking of common people with uncommon stories, actually that's a perfect fitting platform for Krishna. So Krishna, you and I share a common sort of background. We both lived in villages, we've come from very small towns, and we've come to wherever we are today. So I think absolutely not common and definitely an uncommon story. So Krishna, we are going to go back a little bit in history. I'd like to understand, you started from extremely humble beginnings. You've gone through a lot of hardships during those times. I'm sure there are a lot of good lessons and tough lessons you learned at that time. Could you share maybe a little bit of those early beginnings to your life and how that has impacted you as you think of your life today?
Sure, Anand. So, Anand, as you rightly said, that I grew up in a village. So, till fifth grade, I studied in a government. It used to be called middle school in a village in Bihar. It was part of a district called, which is now Kaimur district. It used to be Bhojpur district during those time. And during, I think it must be early 80s, right? Because of course I was born in 77, so early 80s. I don't remember we had electricity in our village, nor we had roads in our village. I think I saw electricity for the first time when I went to another village in some other country, one of my relatives' house or something, and I saw there's a bulb. And then I realized, okay, how does it work? And of course, in that village also, it was not so consistent. It was not that it was always on. But I got to know something that I had never seen. And of course, now the great news is that India, if you go to any village, anywhere, it's all it's all electrified. So great progress. Everywhere there are roads, but during those time, it was not the case. So, but what I also realized during this process that even as a kid with no knowledge about anything, there was no internet during those time. I was always very aspirational. Like I always wanted to think of myself that, okay, if you put the right effort and if you think about growing, you will find avenues to grow. And again, one thing led to another, and eventually I ended up being in Patna. And of course, Patna is one of the education capitals of India. People are very aspirational. You'll hear a lot of like maybe negative things about that part of our country. But one thing is consistent, that you'll find a lot of successful people who have done extremely well in all fields of life that you can think of. So yeah, it's the beginning. It was like in the first few years in the village was really very less exposure. But once I went to Patna, I had opportunity to get to study in Loyola School Patna, which is one of the best school in Patna, and then that really gave me a great platform to think bigger.
I just was reminiscing my own childhood. You were talking about not having power. We of course had power, but it used to be 5 days a week power cut, 2 days a week we have power. So it's interesting times for sure at the time. But maybe Krishna, let's get into sort of the schooling. You went to Patna, you went to a very good school, big change from the village. What were your first experiences? What are the big lessons learned there? What is the difference from your early life when you went to the school? And how did these learnings shape your future thinking?
So Anand, even when I was in my school in my village, I was always a good student. Obviously, that's what my teachers used to tell me, because maybe other students were either they didn't have access to, they had maybe even less resources than me, maybe because, and they had nobody in the home to guide. At least my father, even though he was into temporary job during the time I was to stay in village, but he was a lecturer in a university, right? So I had that kind of privilege compared to other even less privileged students in my class in school. But when I went to Patna, Loyola School was one of the best school that you can get into. And there I got to meet all kinds of like classmates. Some of them had very, very strong background. Some of them had were like extremely bright. So that brought a lot of, I'll say, positive competitive pressure, right? Because everybody is so good, then you also try to become good. And that has been one of my biggest learning, that the only way for you to improve, either as a company, as an individual, is that you put yourself in a competitive scenario, because the competition brings best out of it. And that's something, as you have seen in Simplilearn also, we admire some of our competitors, because I think they push us to work even harder and do even better. So that was one learning, that being a good company, because if you're in a good company, you also become good. And education is going to have a huge difference to someone's life. That's an investment that you can't like. There's no other investment that can match. Like if you know mathematics, and of course you know mathematics, there's this concept called exponent, right? So if you put exponent on any number, you can't imagine the growth rate at which the number grows. We only talk about geometric progression, but think about what kind of progression it will happen depending upon what kind of education have you gone through. So being a big proponent that the only thing that makes a huge difference in someone's life is access to great education and being part of a great company.
Wonderful. And actually, Krishna, this is also a good point for me to ask you. Some of the learners that come to Simplilearn have similar stories, by the way. And just for the audience, we have a lot of learners who come from underprivileged, places, families, and backgrounds. And there are a lot of great inspirational stories that we see with these learners as well, which mirror some of the things that Krishna has talked about. Krishna, what do you hear from some of these learners? What are some of the stories you are able to share with the audience?
So, Anand, we see a lot of distinct pattern when it comes to learner. Since many times people sign up a course because somebody told them to sign up for a course, or they heard about some story in their office or in their family that somebody did something good happened with them, and when they sign up for the course, they sign up to complete the program. But what I have seen consistently is that the learners who have performed the best in our entire cohort, and we of course do so many different cohorts, had the hardest life. Either like we have seen a lot of examples of women who have taken career break and they have to take care of their family, extended family, and still they end up completing a program and getting a lot of success. Or we have seen people with small babies, where they have to balance their personal, professional, and also take care of a small baby who can't even communicate what he or she wants. Still, they end up completing the program successfully and come out with the flying colors. So I think if wherever we have seen there's a high degree of commitment and high degree of desire to become successful and differentiate yourself, people have end up becoming very successful. Where there is a feeling of entitlement that, okay, I have paid money, I have taken the program, now it's not my problem. It doesn't work that way. At the end of the day, you are the one who has to consume that curriculum. Our role can only be an enabler. That you are getting stuck somewhere, will help you. We'll guide you step by step. If you fall behind on any step, we are okay to restart the step. But final hard work is up to you, and the knowledge that you derive also remains with you.
I remember, in the early days when I joined Simplilearn, there was one case study one testimonial that I'd seen of a lady in the US, Krishna, that was homeless in a car. and jobless as well, right? And I remember that she had said that she managed to somehow make money to take a project management program. And it was a game changer, life changer. And 6 months later, she had a job, $100,000 salary. I remember her email to Simplilearn, which was absolutely astounding, the kind of inspiration that we could derive from that. I think those are the kind of
I
stories.
remember that lady's story because I had spoken to her also. And there was another angle to her story also, that she had become mom at the age of 16.
Wow.
And of course, she had to go, she had to fend herself, and she was out of family, and really tough life. And after completing this course, one of her last finishing line was of that long email was that she could see the sense of pride in her son looking at her mom, that now my mom is doing a respectable job. So I think that was also I'm sure both of them must have felt great about this whole experience.
Which is really the power of education for you, right? So moving on a little bit, Krishna, and back to your life, right? I think we now move to your college life, and that's where you and I actually met for the first time, I think. For the audience's sake, Krishna and I knew each other, but we weren't necessarily the best of friends, so I want to be very candid about that. We were in different departments and different parts of the hostel as well. And I remember some very distinct things about you, Krishna, at that time. One is, quite seriously, you were a very big debater. You loved arguments, and sometimes for the sake of arguing. So that was something I remember very well. I remember you were very driven. You were the first person who said, I'm going to be the president of the college for the student committee, of course. And typically, in any college, typically the locals typically take that position, right? But you did it. You made it happen. And you started by becoming the class representative and then gradually becoming the president for the college, right? So I think I have some distinct memories, which I remember you were very different from the rest. But I would love to hear your story of the college and what you thought you accomplished there, and how your experience in college shaped, again, what you've done after that.
So Anand, I had a great time at college. I think that was the best part of my life so far. I tell that very proudly. So here is what happened with me. So I was always a very good student. In fact, I was the topper of Bihar board also, which is a very difficult thing to do, because when I wrote my 10th board exam, there were about 6.67 lakhs people who had written board exams. So it was a really tough thing, because I was really very studious and very academically focused. So, but when I was going to college, my father told me, in fact, my father gave me a great advice. He said that, see, you are a good student. If you go to the college, if you continue the way you are continuing, you might end up getting 90-95% and become an engineer. But fast forward few years out of college, nobody is going to ask whether you became an engineer with 95% marks or 70% marks. So just do everything else other than studies. And actually, I took it. That was the best, I'll say, advice ever that I got, and actually I stick to it. So I found NIT Surathkal, frankly, very easy for me, because getting 70% was like a cakewalk. I never had to. In fact, I was so consistent. The first semester to my 6th semester, my marks were consistently 71.2 to 71.6. Very precise. So with that being the case, I had a lot of time to try out various things. So I think that gave me very good experience. I must say, I tried sports, I tried a little bit of student politics or whatever. We did a lot of friendships. I think that has really helped me transform myself, because I had a lot of time other than studies to think about what's happening around me.
Yeah, so, but Krishna, I want to deep dive a little bit on the student politics side. I'm sure there are some leadership lessons you've already also got from that experience. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
So first, I want to answer this point on being arguing for the sake of arguing. See, my always has been. I remember one of the earliest debate in my school that I had participated, where the topic was that population is a bane for the country, and I went and debated very hard that human being with brain, with heart, with real life, how can they be a problem? They cannot be a problem. And of course, I won the debate because I had a lot of points related to that. That the challenge is that this human being who is not got access to resources is maybe a bane to the society. But imagine, how can human being be a burden? So I always had contrary view. But yeah, on the student politics, what I learned is the same thing that has been consistent with my strong belief that if you're focused on something and you put the right kind of effort, everything works. Like I know one of my good friend was CV Hariharan, right?
Yep.
You also know CV, we were same school. So when this election count, voting count was happening, everybody was sitting, and he was sitting next to me, CV. And when the teacher, the Sumam David was our professor, and she was the returning officer, what we call in elections. She was the one who was counting the vote. So we saw that she had kept two like piece of paper. One was like this, and other started going like this. So CV was sitting next to me and saying that you are going to lose by huge margin. He was my closest friend in school at that point of time. But what turned out to be that this was my vote. And then he was surprised that how did this happen? I said, the consistent effort. So we, in this entire process, I never took anything for granted. So just because I am contesting election, I have good friends, they are going to really vote for me. I really mapped my entire audience, went to everyone one by one, and had reasons for them to believe that if you vote for me, what do you get? How is it going to help you? So the entire exercise I did, and the result became that, okay, the other guy who was like against me, maybe he took it for granted that he had done a great job last year, so automatically he will win this year also. But then, since in my one-on-one convincing, I had mapped everyone's interest, everyone's desire, everyone's expectation from that particular role, it worked out to me. The learning has been that don't take things for granted. You might be great, but still you have to go and put effort if you want to achieve something.
And I think, Krishna, you bring up a very important point. I think some great person said, it's not the will to win, but the will to prepare to win that differentiates people. I think, big lessons out of that experience there. Thank you, Krishna, for sharing that. So you finished college, you got your 71.2%, you got it exactly right. You left college, you joined your first job. Krishna, honestly, when you left, the college and you joined a big company, I always figured it was a very big misfit. But you still joined a big company. And then you did it for a while, and there were some experiences you had there which then shaped your next chapter. Love to hear the story of that chapter.
So,
Anand,
well. Actually, from the college, I didn't go and join a big company. But I'll tell you something else also happened.
Sure.
So when I was in college, from first to sixth semester, getting 71.2 to 6 consistent performance was great. But when it came time for campus, I was not eligible to sit on campus because most of the good companies, at least so-called good companies, had 75% as a cutoff. So that was a big cultural, I'll not say cultural shock. It was a big shock that I was never used to not being eligible for something because I had less marks. So I got really very upset and I don't know, kind of agitated with myself that how can something like this happen to me? So not everybody knows, but 7th semester and 8th semester, both the semester I consistently scored 86 and 88%. That nobody believes. And I told some of our classmates that it can't happen. I showed them my marks. So that also reminded me that, okay, I was getting this because I was not putting the effort. That was a conscious choice. But when I got that shock, I did put the effort and I really got that kind of mark. And that also, and during that time when I was in the final year, I think everybody started becoming a little bit serious about what they wanted to do in life. So what I did was that most Biharis, they want to become IAS officer. I always wanted to become an IAS officer. So I thought that, okay, the best place for me to do that is to go to an IIT where everybody prepares for that and start preparing. So that led me to IIT Kanpur. I wrote GATE exam and went to IIT Kanpur for doing MTech as an parking lot because you get free hostel and you get stipend also if you do MTech. But you go and prepare for IAS. That was my goal. But 2 weeks into IIT Kanpur, I realized that this is not a place that I can survive. This is not a subject that I really like. I got into microelectronics, which was the hottest topic. So only when you score very high, you get microelectronics. And IIT Kanpur was the only place that time where there was a full-fledged Cadence lab. Cadence softwares were very costly, but they had the full lab. But as soon as I realized that this is not something that I want to do. In fact, one of our current partners, Professor Sadgopan, was the IIT director. He was the HOD of electrical engineering that time at IIT Kanpur. But within that 15 days period also, I had built a relationship with him that time also. But then I realized that this is a course that I don't want to do, and I decided to drop off. And after that, then I joined Infosys because of Infosys Wipro teachers. They were hiring anyone and everyone during those times.
And what was your experience there? Obviously, by the way, Infosys, Wipro, great companies. They do some amazing work. But of course, there's a certain mindset that you had which may not have fit there really well. So talk to us about that. Tell us more about what happened there and how did the entrepreneurship journey start?
So Anand, when I joined Infosys, that was in September 1999, you complete a training program, and they had a very good training program. I think that was the best training program I think that I can think of somebody who doesn't know how to code, how to program, and they had everything covered. So that gave me a good background. But after the training period was over, there was no work. Literally, there was no work. So, and because the business model of all these companies during that late 90s and early 2000 was that they always had almost 30 to 40% people on bench waiting for project. And as soon as the project comes, you get deployed. Fortunately or unfortunately, I never got deployed on a project. So I was always like roaming around without any work. So I got bored. So I went to my boss and I told him, I don't have any work. Give me at least some work. He said that there is no work in India, but you can go to US. So actually, this discussion happened on Friday. Next Friday, I was in US because that time the visa and all also used to happen very fast. Then I went to US. I went to Boston through Infosys for a project. The day I landed in the office of that particular company, it was 2000, September 2000. I landed, I think, on the weekend in US, and Monday onwards I was supposed to start on the project. The Monday, the first thing that Infosys got to know, and we also got to know, that the project is scrapped. Then they tried putting me in another project with the same customer. That project also never happened. And 1 month down the line, that company itself got closed down. So there was this company called EC Cubed, which was they're building some components for B2B commerce, and it was a startup like typical .com kind of startup, but the startup got busted. So I came back to India, and then I left Infosys. Because there was all this year, like almost like 13-14 months in Infosys, there was no project at all. So when I left Infosys, I started thinking about what can I do next. So I started networking with my school friends. Some of them had gone to different colleges. One of my friends had gone to IIT Kanpur. So I started talking to him, and I realized that he was exactly in same boat as me. He was with IBM, and IBM also there was hardly any work. So, and he was already thinking about, in fact, he was also doing something already, that why don't we do something of our own. In fact, he had already started doing something of his own before me. Then I also joined him, and that became our first company, Tech Unified. And soon 2 other guys also joined. So 4 of us, with average 1 year of so-called IT experience, but no real experience, started our first company called Tech Unified. And it was like 2000 was market was like 2021, all-time great. Everybody thought that this is how the world is going to remain always. But unfortunately, that continued for a short period of time. 9/11 happened, and the world became standstill. So we were here, 4 of us, no money, no experience, and we were trying to build a company. But what worked for us was that we stayed together. We never gave up. 2002 and 2003 was cruel, right? We had no work. We don't know what to do. I don't know how we survived, but somehow we survived. And that also helped us learn that if you want to build something, you need to have this thing called perseverance. Don't give up. You will always get tough time. Become each other's strength, and then you can sail through. Eventually, the Tech Unified, that was the name of my previous startup, started in 2000. We ended up selling that company in 2007 February to a listed company called Warji Informatics, which was started by Bikram Sarabhai, and with almost no capital. That was a 49 crore transaction at that point of time. We had no investors, nobody. So pretty much starting from scratch to becoming, like, all of us became multi-dollar millionaire. And I think at that in 2007, I think average age of all 4 of us was maybe 28, 29 years. So it was a good outcome that we created by taking the risk at that point of time, and just being persistent, perseverance, and all this good things that you hear about.
And I think, Krishna, you said one thing which I think is really, really important, right? I think you took a risk in a time where a lot of people may not have taken a risk, which I think is really, really important. But you took the risk and you stayed with that risk for a long time, and you wanted to make it work. And I think that is so important for, I think, our audience to also understand that that's one of the key formulas to any kind of success, actually. So I think that's a really important point. So Krishna, you finished Tech Unified, you exited, had a successful exit. Where did then Simplilearn and EdTech and education as an idea come in your mind? And why education? What's the whole story there?
So Anand, I'll tell you, in my Tech Unified experience, see, our biggest business used to be in Saudi Arabia. Out of all the places, if you think about 2002, 2003, 2004 time, most of the people of our age, and those who have gone to IITs and ITs, they wanted to go to US and Europe. Nobody wanted to go to Saudi Arabia. But within that also, we took a risk that, okay, let's go to Saudi Arabia. That sounded like quite scary, but we went there and we found that they had banks, and banks are always very tech driven. So we got an opportunity to get exposed to complex system that otherwise you would not have got an opportunity. So it provided us a lot of learning, and that gave us success also, because we could figure out how to navigate this Saudi corporate and banking system and grow in that. So when we sold Tech Unified in 2007, and we were trying to figure it out, what do we do next? What I realized that 4 of us started Tech Unified together. So all 4 of us, engineering graduate from 99 batch. Same profile, if you look at on paper, someone worked. I was with Infosys for before that. Two of them were with Wipro. One was with IBM. Similar kind of background. But in this 7-year journey, everybody figured out their own niche. So we never divided work formally saying that you do this, you do that, you do that. But eventually we all settled in our own territory. So someone started focusing on sales, someone started focusing on product and tech, somebody started focusing on marketing, and I was responsible for delivery. So I used to take care of all the whenever we used to win any contract, making sure that we deliver the product successfully, consistently, and so on. So one challenge that I had was that most of my customers were in Saudi Arabia and that region, and later we also got into Africa, so Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda. One of my toughest challenges used to be like sending people to go to those locations for deployment, because a bank in any of this region is very complex. They don't allow anybody to touch unless they are confident that the person knows the stuff. So my challenge was that how do I hire, train, deploy good people in countries where majority people don't want to go. So hiring, training became a big part of my job naturally in Technified. So when I was coming out of Technified, I was trying to figure it out that what can I do. So in the process, what I realized was that Technified business was B2B. We had banking product, customer connect that used to sell to banks. But a lot of people started talking about internet as being the next big thing in 2007, 2008, and actually it became pretty big over a period of time. So I thought that why not first learn internet, then you can get ideas on what you can do on the internet. So with that thought, I started Simplilearn as a blog in 2009 to start blogging, because I love writing. So you can write on your own blog. And in the process, you can also learn how an internet site works. So that's where the first time I heard about SEO, first time I heard about analytics, that okay, there's this tool called Google Analytics that you can put it on the site and it shows you who has come from, where they have come, and so on. So initial interest was to learn, but this blog became popular. Because I was like, I had already left Technified and I had all the time to keep writing. So I kept writing. I also started recording and doing a lot of classes. In fact, some of my free classes on PMP, I remember in 2009 and early 2010, I used to have 500 and 600 people logging into my class for 1 hour doubt clarification class that I used to do, but it was all free. There was nothing paid. And then that gave me the idea that, okay, there are so many people who are coming to on my website for getting free advice. If I put a paid button, some of them will pay. So that's where I copy pasted PayPal that script and put it on my website. And I think I did that on a Saturday evening, and Sunday morning when I woke up, I had 7 payments. So then the model was proven. So that became the starting of Simplilearn as a company that we know.
Wonderful. So Krishna, maybe in some sense to simplify what you've done, you've taken a lot of risk at a time when you were doing a corporate job. And sometimes not doing something productive allows you to think about other things and take risks. Is that maybe an oversimplification of your journey, or what would you say?
So Anand, I first want to comment on this corporate job. I'll say that for 1 year or so that I was employed with Infosys, I only took corporate salary, but I never did any job because I had no job, right? In fact, that was the starting point of my entrepreneurial journey, because I used to go to Infosys every day, go have free dinner because they used to offer free dinner after 8 o'clock. I used to go to gym, again, enjoy their gym because I had no work, go to their free internet, go to their library, but hardly any work. And then after doing this for a long period of time, I really got bored. And that's where I started talking to my school friends who had gone to different colleges and they had gone to different companies to figure it out on, are they doing meaningful job? Are they doing something that I'm not aware of? And in the process, I realized that many of them were in exact similar boat as me, because all of them were so-called bench in their respective companies, and that became the starting of my first entrepreneurial journey. So yeah, it gave me time to think about on if your company is not making best of you, what else can you do? So my first venture was not a well thought out venture. It was just to do something meaningful. When you look at Simplilearn story also, it was not a very, again, well thought out venture that, okay, now I want to move from B2B sales company like that Technified was to an education platform. It also happened by chance because it was a blog that I was running to learn internet, and then it clicked and it became an online platform that we know today. So it all happened in the flow of work, right?
So Krishna, I think the big takeaway for our audience is too much of doing nothing can lead to great things if you're willing to take the risk and persist. That's the important takeaway. Krishna, do you run into this challenge of doing nothing at work these days? Or what does your day look like, these days?
So Anand, it's a great point. So from there on to now, of course, we have grown in size, we have grown in number of customers, and so is associated challenges with our business, different product lines, different countries. But that core thought that we need to always challenge status quo and not become comfortable if you're in a comfortable scenario has stays with me, right? Like one of the things that you already know that I'm in the process of making a change that when when our US business increased, we also acquired a large company and we have a large number of team members in US. My morning times started becoming free and my evening started becoming very, very tough because of so much interaction that I had with the US time zone. And very well settled in India because of being in Bangalore for so many years. Very, very strong ecosystem. In fact, my all extended families are all maybe 1 kilometer away from my house. Great support system at home. Kids in school. But at this point of time, I'm making this decision that okay, if a large part of my team is based in US and I'm busy more during the US time, why should I be based in Bangalore? I should rather be based there. Now it's a big change. In fact, to me, it's an even bigger challenge than the challenge that I saw maybe 15 years back when I started my first venture out of boredom of not having work. It's a difficult change. If you are used to stay in India for 20 years, where you have every kind of support available, people are ready to help, to a country like US, where whoever you are, you might be a multi-billionaire, but you can't take things for granted. There are some work that you have to do at home. There are some household responsibility that you have to fulfill. Is a major change. But I'm up for a challenge, and I'm hoping that it turns out to be good.
Wonderful. So I think for the next podcast, which hopefully with Krishna we'll have soon, we'll be talking about the things he does at home once he's in the US, right?
And most likely from US.
Absolutely. So Krishna, you've been in edtech and education for give or take 10 plus years. You've seen a lot of trends emerge, disappear, happen, right? What are your thoughts on the key trends that will continue in edtech? What are the key things that you think are going to happen in the next few years? Predictions.
Yeah. So Anand, first, when you talk about edtech, since we are in this a part of edtech, we invariably think about our part. But edtech is a pretty large industry, right? There is like what we call K-12, like helping learners providing value add to learners over whatever they learn in school. Then we have test prep, helping people crack various kinds of exams, and we have a lot of different kinds of exams in India. There are global exams like SAT and GMAT, and then there is like tech companies who are very focused on helping learners get their first job, and then there is a lifelong learning. Where large part of our programs cater to, and then we also have higher education. So it's a pretty wide spectrum. So in the last 10 years, the one thing that I have noticed is that all these players have some kind of content, right? Either they generate content or procure content, or now with Gen AI, you can create a lot of content in automated manner. But I don't think learners sign up for any of the programs because they want access to content. Because I strongly believe that the best content is available on YouTube. You just need to find which of those all in this content universe that YouTube has, which is the best content. So why would learner come to any tech company, Simplilearn, or for that matter anyone else? I think they go and sign up to a tech platform for their promise, for the experience that okay, I am signing up with this company because I expect Y as an outcome that they have consistently spoken about. So I think experience is what a tech company should focus on, and this experience can be delivered in various ways, right? Like some companies who are into deep tech training, they do this via a combination of instructor engagement, projects, hands-on lab where you can go and complete your assignment. You grade the assignment, give them feedback, and so on. That's one way of like providing engagement. Other way of providing engagement is that lot of, if you look at higher ed company, what do they is that not only you get access to curriculum from the great professors, you also create cohort and go and join and learn together in a group from where the professor or the facilitator facilitates discussion and so on. So end of the day, the experience and outcome is what going to be really important, and learners are going to pay for that. And of course, from time to time, you will have disruptive technology like Gen AI coming in and creating a new dimension. Like for example, content has become even bigger commodity because it can be generated at a scale through a technology like Gen AI.
Absolutely. So, Krishna, I think, in line with that as well, this is also a good time for entrepreneurs. There are a lot of entrepreneurs thinking, should I do the same, should I take the same risk that Krishna took many, many years back? For these sort of budding entrepreneurs or the ones who are yet to be entrepreneurs, what advice would you give them?
So, Anand, this is an advice that I have consistently given to people who want to become an entrepreneur, both online and offline, is that you should not become an entrepreneur because you see a lot of people becoming entrepreneur, a lot of entrepreneurs becoming popular, because you only hear about people who have got somewhat success. You don't hear about a lot of people who have not become successful. So, this entire journey is very, I'll say, it's a very tough journey. Not everybody becomes successful. People who become successful are inherently interested in what they're doing. So whether they get success or not, they would have still done the same thing. So if you really feel very passionate about a topic, that you think that just by working on in that particular problem or in that particular area, you might get a lot of satisfaction. End of the day, you had a tough time, but you worked on something that you inherently like, you'll feel good at the end of the day. If the answer is yes, then you should just go ahead and become an entrepreneur and don't worry about anything. Don't worry about the trend, don't worry about the market, don't worry whether somebody will join your startup or not, don't worry whether somebody will fund or not. Because if you are so interested in that particular problem statement and the kind of work that you want to do, everything will fall in place. But if you want to become an entrepreneur because it's a trend, my initial top of the mind recall is that it's very difficult to become successful catching a trend and trying to ride on that particular trend.
So, Krishna, I think, by any measure of it, I think a lot of people will say that you've been very successful in your life. The most important question is, do your parents think you're successful in life? So, what would you say to that?
Yeah. So, Anand, the two-part answer. So, I'll break parents into my dad and my mom. So, I think every mother thinks that their son is successful, whoever you are. So, I think let's keep that aside. For my father, I think he would have loved me to become an IAS officer because in when it comes to Biharis, career-wise, either you are an IAS officer or you are everybody else. So now I'm not an IAS officer, so I'm in that everybody else category. So frankly, my father, if I go to him, he'll still say that you should have written UPSC exam and become an IAS officer. What is that you're doing?
So there you go. You could be a very successful entrepreneur, still not make your parents happy. Keep that in mind. That's a big lesson learned for them.
Bihari parents.
For Bihari parents especially. Krishna, another question is, frankly, something I struggle with myself sometimes, right? And for most entrepreneurs or leaders out there, so much to be done, so much to be accomplished. Tomorrow has to be better than yesterday, as you yourself said. How do you keep things grounded? How do you keep things sane? What do you do outside of work? How do you keep things together?
So, Anand, it's a great point, and I'm sure you also go through this challenge. Any senior executive goes through that challenge. See, a couple of things has worked for me, and I try to become better at that. One, I'm always very disciplined when it comes to my personal life. Whoever I am, and I've seen that you doing that also. Whether I'm traveling, whether I'm in a day-to-day work, or whether I'm on a vacation, I ensure that I spend about an hour on physical exercise, either playing or swimming or going to a gym is absolute must, because that gives you a lot of energy. So that makes my physical state in a good place. Absolutely, it's non-negotiable. There's nothing can stop me doing that. At least 5 days a week. Every week. So that's one thing that has helped me a lot. Second, once you are used to this stressful time, over time you figure out a mechanism. So one of the mechanisms that I have figured out is that every problem has a solution. So maybe as soon as you hear about a big problem, initially you get very agitated, you get sad, you go through a lot of emotion. But once you accept this fact that it's part of life, then you start immediately thinking about, okay, now that this has happened, what next? What are the options that I have, and start following that option. I'm also very spiritual. In fact, as a family, we are very spiritual and a big believer of Gita, that the only thing that is in your control is effort. The results are not in your control. And again, a very big believer of that you put your best foot forward, you put your best effort with the best intention, but don't bother about the results. Whatever results has come, because of various reasons, that's what the result you deserved. And again, put your next best effort next time. So that has really helped me a lot. And every time I get into a scenario on something that has happened to me, which is very unexpectedly bad, I remind myself again of the same thing, that I put my best effort. Maybe next time if I put into the same scenario, I'll take this learning and put even better effort. but I'll not bother about the result.
Thank you, Krishna, for that wisdom and so many pieces of nuggets of advice that you shared. I'm sure our audience is really lapping it all up and getting the value that you're providing. I think for the audience, I want to just share that if any of you had a great anecdote of making your Bihari parents happy about your successes, we'd love to hear about it. So please let us know. Obviously, Krishna was unable to do that in spite of all of his achievements. So love to hear stories from you all. Audience, I'd like to thank you for being here. Krishna, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your stories and life's lessons for all of us.
Thank you, Anand. We speak every day on various topics, but it was a different kind of conversations. Really loved it. Thank you.
This series continues further with some conversations with industry experts, learner experiences. We also work with universities and partners. We'll have a lot of stories from them in terms of success stories there. So stay tuned for future episodes of As Simple as That. Thank you.